Today on the My Fit Tribe podcast, I'm joined by Jared Markiewicz. He's the founder and CEO of Functional Integrated Training, medicine's go-to strength and performance facility. Since 2012, he's worked with everyone from youth athletes to professionals and everyday adults, all chasing their best. He holds a degree in kinesiology from UW-Madison and brings a wide range of certifications in strength, performance, and nutrition. Jared also serves on the advisory board for the YCA and is a member of the NSCA and USA weightlifting. He's passionate about helping people unlock their potential and show up stronger in every area of life. Hi, Jared. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Eric. It's great to be here.
You have been on my must-have list for a while, so I'm super excited for this conversation. So before we start talking about your gym and all the things that you're getting into, let's learn a little bit about you and how you got into fitness.
Yeah, there's some interesting backstories with it. The one that I like to share the most, because I feel like it's the most unique and it kind of embodies a lot of what I am. I tell my daughter, so I have twin 9-year-old daughters now.
Oh, they're twins.
They're twins, yes,
Wow.
Bryn and Natalie. Is that, hey, you're weird, I'm weird, we're all weird. Let's embrace it. And when I think I was 12, I made the conscious decision to stop drinking soda entirely.
At 12.
At 12. And was drinking a lot of Mountain Dew at that point and whatever else. But for me, it was this conscious decision because I had recognized this really poor health history with my father's side of the family. And just all of his siblings passing away or being sick, and in ways where I felt like I have to be able to shift this story, this narrative. And so at 12, I decided, hey, I'm going to quit drinking soda. And I can tell you to this day, other than occasionally having in mixed drinks through college, I don't drink soda anymore. And so that was kind of the starting point, I guess, to the fitness, realm of it. But then going through high school and really started actually in middle school as an athlete, playing basketball, football, and golf. Those are kind of my main three sports. I had a significant knee injury history. Now, it wasn't anything where I was actually having to have surgeries on the knees. It was more of I'm injured, it feels unstable, it's swollen, I'd have to take time off from the sport, and just got frustrated with it. And I felt like, again, there's got to be something I can do to help others not have to go through the same experience that I'm going through. And at the end of the day, wanting to help myself, wanting to learn enough and learn more to be like, okay, this doesn't seem like something that has to be. Maybe there's a way for me to fix myself. And that led me down the path of going to school for kinesiology, exercise science. I graduated. I spent a lot of time working for a variety of clubs. I worked for Harbor Athletic Club locally. I worked for a guy who was running a small training studio simultaneously. Got a great opportunity to work at Gold's Gym in Fitchburg, which is now Princeton Club. But at the time, it was being opened. And what I mean by that is we had a sales center in what's now Jimmy John's in Fitchburg. So if you know the Fitchburg area, there's a Jimmy John's. And we had an entire line of equipment in there, 4 full-time personal trainers coaching 30 to 40 hours a week of one-on-one training sessions, and a 4-person sales team.
Oh my God.
All stacked into that little space while the actual gym was being built out. And it was fun. I got to be creative. I got to learn. I met some amazing people that I still have relationships with. In fact, one of the guys that was on my client list the second day I started working there is still a member of our gym today.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So we're talking about 2007 to now 2026.
Wow.
But in the process of that, I learned that where other people had a hard time putting in 40 to 45 hours a week of one-on-one training, I loved it. I embraced it. I enjoyed it. And I didn't have a spouse. I had an apartment. I had a dog. So I didn't really have a whole lot of responsibilities. And I realized, like, okay, I enjoy this enough that I can grind through this and keep doing this. I became their highest earning trainer nationwide. They had, I think, 7 or 8 gyms nationwide, and I was their top earner for 3 years consecutively. But I got to a point where I realized, one, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to get some mentoring, and they weren't going to provide it for me. I couldn't find it in the gym. There wasn't someone who was more advanced or in leadership that I was like, okay, I can go to this person. This person can teach me, can guide me. Here, read this. Here, go follow this. And so I sought it out myself. I started to travel to live events and found this really great organization called Fitness Revolution. Guys that, so Pat Rigsby and Nick Berry were the current owners of that business. And they mentored me. And they surrounded me with people who I looked at and said, I can learn from this person. I can learn from what they're doing in this gym and apply it to my clients right now. I can take this information back. I see ideas I have being formulated in these gentlemen or women's heads, and I can talk to them and have a conversation with them and feel like we're on the same level, or they're even slightly above me. You know, it's kind of the idea, like if you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room. Yeah. I felt like I was in a room where there were a lot of people who were smarter than me, but also weren't so aloof that I couldn't approach them. I couldn't have deeper, more meaningful conversations about life or about training or whatever. And so that became my consistent. And I can't tell you, well, one, how many times I've driven through the middle of the night down to Louisville or Indianapolis. And also, I think we were talking about this the other day, I'm pretty sure I have more speeding tickets in Indiana than in any other state, including Wisconsin, which I've lived in my entire life.
Well, Indiana's kind of boring to drive through, so.
I could share some stories about that would make you laugh, but ultimately, yeah, it became a place where I felt like I connected, I belonged. And they kind of got to a point with me where I had told Gold's Gym, hey, at that point, I think I was 24 or 23 when I started working there full time. And I said to them, I'm going to give you guys everything I've got. Give me back enough information. Teach me about how to run a business so I can own my own gym by the time I'm 35. As I'm going through and I'm learning and I'm realizing I'm not going to get it from Gold's, and I start to get involved with Fitness Revolution and have conversations with Pat and with Nick and another guy, Ryan Ketchum was his name. And they owned a gym, him and his friend, Will Fleming, that I looked at and I'm like, oh, I can make a gym like this. I would love my gym to look and feel like this. They kind of started saying to me, you have all the tools. It's just a matter of you taking the risk on and jumping in and saying, I'm going to start my own gym. And that conversation started to evolve and it started to roll through my head. And so eventually I said, okay, and signed on as a franchisee. I think at the time they've changed it to a licensee because they're not asking you to make a cookie cutter gym and make everything look the same. They kind of let you have your own ideas and give you the business infrastructure to support it. But at 27, I opened up functional integrated training.
Wow. You know, there's so much I can dive into when you're talking about it, especially, like you said, surrounding yourself with people and how important that is, because you have to search it out sometimes, as you mentioned. How impactful for your journey.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about it is even now as I'm going into and evolving into a different realm of coaching and guidance from where I started with my gym, the same people are coming back through and influencing. And it's like, I've kind of lost some of those connections because you get caught up in your business and you just got to go and grind. But now I'm realizing that I need to rekindle some of those connections because we still all think alike. And that's what I think is, you have to seek out, but it was an age where we were a little bit pre the information age we currently have,
right.
Where it's so easy to go and search out on YouTube or Google or now AI and go, I have these things that for me resonate. Who out there is like me that I could connect with? At that time, it was like, I felt like I had to go and find these people in person.
Right.
Just got lucky, honestly. And here's actually the story of how that all came about, which is interesting because, so Dave Schmitz lives in Germantown, Wisconsin, which is not too far from my parents' house. And I got connected with him. He's he's the band man. That's what he's been known as his whole career. And he and I connected, and I was like, well, hey, can I come learn from you? And he's like, oh yeah, we have these groups that meet in my church basement on Saturday mornings, and we do a workout. And so I went there, was at my parents' house, and I drove there on a Saturday morning and did a workout with a bunch of people from his church and him. Just this amazing dude. He was probably late 40s, maybe early 50s, with just incredible energy. And I was like, I have to be around him more. And then that's where I got invited to or exposed to the first event, the live event I went to, which introduced me to Pat and Nick and the whole story from there. But Dave just retired from being the band man, and he's like kind of closed his company down. But it helped me remember too, because he and I've had a relationship now for, going on 15 plus years. And we've been loyal supporters of his bands. We use his bands in our gym. It's really the only band we use because it's fantastic. It is durable. It's consistent. And so it kind of blew my mind when he and I have a conversation, and he's saying to me, I'm retiring, I'm hanging it up. And I'm going, man, like I've known him this long. And that led me down the road of thinking about all these other people who have been mentors to me that have impacted even how I taught my coaches, whether they realized it or not. And going, I need to rekindle these connections, these relationships, because my guess is that these individuals are probably in similar places that I am now, right? And we can learn from each other again in a whole new and different way.
Okay, so we're going to get into that with like that next chapter stage. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about your gym and what type of training that you offer. And let's just start with that.
Sure, yeah. Really simply, we are training individuals so it allows them the ability to thrive in their life. Simple and concrete. We want our clients to not feel like they need to be in the gym every single day. We build our training around that concept. We want them in there 2 to 3 times a week. And essentially, we're doing it through movement training. And people would call it strength when you look at it from the outside and you see we have barbells and squat racks and kettlebells. But the reality is we're just teaching people basic, fundamental movement patterns that when you clump them together, you can create any activity an individual would want to do, from the most complex, like running around a tennis court and swinging a racket, to the most simple, hiking up a cliff or up a mountain. And we want to allow our clients the ability to do the training that they need to do so they can actually thrive and enjoy their lives, versus feeling like they're married to the gym. We want there to be more than just how much weight did I lift, or how many times did I attend this week, or all the things the metrics that can get tied to living in the gym space that we've created really in this modern world for people to get healthy.
Right.
When realistically, we just need to move and move well. And so teaching people how to do that, because we just don't move that much anymore,
right,
is the reason why we exist, unfortunately. And like the world has created a need for gyms like what we do.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because everybody's workout is going to look different depending on the person, right? And it's so important people remember that you don't have to do exactly what your neighbor's doing or what you think you should do, but that the movement and being able to have that quality of life going forward is really what you should be aiming for. What type of mobility stuff, I'm curious, do you work with? Because, as people get older, that for me personally, that seems to be something that's coming into my life, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I like to explain what we do as the 3 S's. And I say them in a certain order because I think that it's important in which order they go, while also realizing that as we move from, so the 3 S's are stability, strength, and stamina. I think that you need stability to then find strength, to then be able to have stamina. So the stability is the movement patterns. People say balance and coordination, and they say, well, I'm not coordinated. Not true. The brain is incredibly neuroplasticity is a real thing that exists for people at any age. And it's been proven over and over again with very aging populations in senior centers and assisted living centers. You can learn how to move better at any age. So stability then leads to the ability to express that stability with strength. And that's adding extra load. So that's where people think about strength training: dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, those sorts of things. But then stamina, being able to do it for longer and longer periods of time. And that's become a really interesting or high priority conversation of late with the longevity push.
Right.
We need a better aerobic system. We need a better cardiovascular system. And I agree 100% with that. I think some of the misconceptions around strength training is that strength training not only is independent from cardiovascular work, it's not. Like, I'll tell you right now, if I give you a 35-pound dumbbell and have you do 10 squats right here, you're going to sit here and tell me your heart rate's not elevated?
Right. Yeah, I can confirm it would be.
Your heart rate's elevated. That's cardiovascular work. It's maybe not what you think of traditionally from the standpoint of it's jogging for a sustained time period, but it's still cardiovascular work. Simultaneously, to your point about mobility, proper strength training is actually the best form of mobility training that exists. And now we can get into nuances, and I'll do my best to just kind of keep it at a lower level, but stretching, for example, is very important. But passively stretching, meaning like you put your legs up on a wall and you do a stretch and you just hold the stretch there, that's passive. Versus active would be like you actually hold your foot or your leg and you flex and extend your muscles. The passive stretching isn't going to do as much for you. Let's just use the example of getting your hamstrings longer, feel like you have more flexibility in your hamstrings to touch your toes. Doing a full range of motion squat with proper tension, or doing a full hip hinge where you're pushing your butt back, so it's an RDL or deadlift, depending on what pattern you're using or thinking about, is going to have dramatically more impact on your ability to stretch your hamstrings or touch your toes than doing a passive stretch where your leg's against the wall. And so what I think is really beautiful about strength training is we can touch all those different pieces, especially when it's coached. And that's where I think one of our differentiators really lies, is the fact that we're not having a massive group of people do our workout of the day and go, okay, everyone, here's what we're doing today, and go. And we're acting as cheerleaders or motivators, but we're not really coaching form and correcting people when they're doing things incorrectly, or in some cases even having conversations and going, hey, I like how that looks, but where do you feel it? Or what does it feel like? Because sometimes you can see somebody do something and you can see their face, and their face and their body don't match. And then you have to go, where's the disconnect here, right? And so for us, the coaching piece, and we do this in our we call it personal training, which is like a 1-on-5 ratio, or our Fit Strong training, which is a 1-on-up-to-20 ratio. But even in both those settings, we're teaching our coaches how to coach in that personal training model first. So they're learning to connect with people. They're learning to get feedback from our clients. Our clients are learning to expect to be asked to give feedback. Because if we say, hey, how'd that feel? And every time you hear, good,
right,
felt good, felt fine, that doesn't help us at all. Because then a lot of times, if we see something and we're asking, it's likely that we saw something that we didn't feel like looked the greatest, or we could tell they didn't feel the greatest doing. And so it's like not being a people pleaser and being able to be like, hey, that bugged my knee a little bit. I kind of thought I saw that too. Let's dig into this and figure out what we can come up with so that it doesn't hurt you. It allows you to leave here better than when you came in, and take that and carry that forward also, right? So we're building programs for people. So they're not just coming in and whatever's on the board, they're doing that. They have something structured. They know, even our Fit Strong training, where it's a session with up to 20 people, if they come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for our 6-week program, they're doing that same structured workout for 6 weeks straight. they know what to expect. Reps are going to change. Maybe the sets or the rest is going to change. But as a whole, they know what to expect. They know what they did, assuming they've been consistent, so they can know how to progress themselves or even regress themselves. So let's say they come in and they're not feeling very good. Well, now they know what they did, what they're supposed to do, and how they're feeling, and can say, hey, coach, I slept terribly last night. My dog kept me up. Then my kids were up. I'm here, but I'm not at my 100%. How can I adjust my program? Well, now we have a program to work from versus guessing. And we can say, hey, okay, well, you did this last time. Pull that back 10%. Let's see how that goes as we're working up. And we can always adjust from there too. And so that coaching piece for us is super critical to our client experience, to our long-term retention of our clients, and ultimately to our goal of what we know. If we can get our clients to just continually be consistent and keep showing up because they're not hurt, because they're actually enjoying the process, they're going to get the results that they've been wanting to get from other training programs that they've done previously, from their, and no offense, but Peloton workouts at home, or the group classes that I joined at the YMCA or whatever it might be, because they actually are learning about their body, how their body functions, how to pay attention more to the things. And so when we can be a part of that, and then we can hear back from them, hey, I was grabbing groceries the other day and I grabbed 4 bags off the floor and I didn't feel my back. Like, that's our win, right? Like that's us winning, is when we have those kinds of experiences.
But I think it's really important to talk about that communication part, because it is can be hard for the client to talk about how things feel, with the fear of not doing it right or just the reaction. So I think it's important for people to have a good relationship with their trainer so that they can feel comfortable in asking the questions and communicating and how they're feeling. And that can be really hard.
Super hard.
Yeah. Super
hard. And ultimately, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, in an environment like ours where, and let's just use a female as an example who's really not experienced a gym before. And I say gym as a facility like ours that looks like what people might consider to be like a collegiate strength training facility or a high school weight room, barbells and squat racks, chalk, and someone walks in and it can be intimidating.
Right.
We, from the get-go, the first thing that we say to people that is a necessity to come start training with us is to do what we call a performance evaluation, where we've had a conversation on the phone and they come into the gym with the expectations of, they fill some forms out to let us know what their health history is. But we're going to sit down in a room separate from the gym and talk about all these things and go through these and understand, what is your motivation, your deeper motivation to train? Not just because you want to lose some weight or get leaner or toned or all those things, but why are those things important to you? And then take them out into the gym and see how they move. And so we start to break down those barriers, that intimidation factor, and asking for feedback and providing feedback right out of the gate, so that we're building trust from the very get-go. And then we hand that information off to our coaches so that when they walk into their first session, they're literally walking through our lobby and into the gym. And as a coach handing them a program, more than likely saying, hey, Erica, great to see you. I know it's your first day today. I'm Coach Jared. You're working with me and Coach Tatum over here today. But this is where we're going to be. We're going to be in this area, or we're going to be down there. So take your program, get down there, get settled, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. And then we'll start walking you through the workout that you're going to be going through, so you get comfortable with it and you can understand what it is you're doing. And so when we start that way, and then when people start realizing that we're there to treat them like people, they can get out of their own way of going, because this is what I hear a lot in evaluations is, well, did I do that right? And that's why I have to sit here and say, hey, there isn't a right or a wrong way to do it. There's your way to do it.
Yeah.
And if you have had hip surgery and you've got a ankle that you've sprained 18 million times, your squat pattern is not going to look like the textbook squat pattern does. But if we can find a squat pattern where you feel the muscles working the way they're supposed to when you're doing a squat, now we have something we can work with. And then we're just building from there and trying to make it better and better. And so it starts to plant that seed in our clients' heads that, oh, they don't care about it looking a certain way. They actually care about how I feel doing it.
Right.
And again, that's when it opens the door for real conversations to be had, for my coaches to feel comfortable calling people out. Because I think that's almost as important in a world where it can be people pleasing upon people pleasing, to not have the courage or the belief in what it is that you know and know well, to tell, and again, for a lot of my coaches, they are younger to significantly younger than some of our clients, and be able to say, hey, that doesn't look right. And I know you want to, and this is especially like the overachievers, I know you want to go up and weight today because you're supposed to, but we really shouldn't based on what I'm seeing there. And here's why. And then, okay. And they buy in and they make the shift. And then they get done and they go, I really appreciate that, because man, in the past I would have done that and I probably would have walked out of here hobbling.
Right.
And we're like, great, you'll be back in 2 days.
Yeah,
Perfect.
To be careful for injury. I mean, if you're not doing it right, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think made you successful as a trainer so early?
I mean, honestly, I feel like it was that, because at Gold's Gym, at least initially, I just got whomever as clients. I didn't get to say, oh, I'm a athletic performance guy or whatever. It's just, I had a full schedule. And once I had a full schedule, I kind of maintained that schedule. I was able to find a way to connect with people wherever they were at. I had a client who literally in his 70s, all he wanted to do for an hour was walk on the treadmill and talk about his job that he did, where he was a wood dryer. And so I would just sit there and talk with him on the treadmill about his job as a wood dryer. And that worked for him. And he was a client of mine. He came to our gym. Like when I moved from Gold's to Fit, he came with us. Never expected it, but he did. And then immediately afterwards, I had somebody who was a stay-at-home mom that wanted to get in shape because her son's playing basketball. And the other one is getting more fit also, and she wants to make sure she can keep up with them. The next client is somebody who's a triathlete, and they're going from being a sprint triathlete to running half Ironmans, and needs to work on strength to be able to support that kind of volume in 2 months. And so it was just this array of people that I just kept finding ways to connect with and create trust, where they felt supported by me. They felt safe with me. And so I figured, hey, this can work for 25 people, which is my capacity as a one-on-one trainer, coaching 2 to 3 sessions of each person a week. Why can't we replicate this and then expand upon it? And at this point, 10x it with the business we currently have, where we have close to 250 members. Yeah.
What surprised you the most about shifting to that entrepreneur state with owning your own gym?
Entrepreneurship, especially in our field, and I'm sure there's other fields too. It was kind of the wild, wild west. In a lot of ways, it was like, okay, you're a good coach, you can be a business owner. There's a lot more to owning a business than just being a good coach. And you realize that quickly. And I think that, as the years went on, you just start to realize how many hats have to be worn in a business for it to run effectively. And also, in a lot of ways, each of those hats is actually a job. If you're in a corporate setting with a huge business and all the funding available to you, CEO and CFO and COO, plus all the managers, plus all the technicians below that are all different employees. Mm-hmm. And early on, It was just me wearing all the hats. And even as I kept going, you hire for what you need, which more often than not for us was coaches. But now I'm wearing, I'm the visionary, but I'm also the financial officer. And so I've got to be two just head battering roles of one going, no, but we need to chase this. We need to do this. And the CFO going, hold on. We can't afford to do that. Yeah. So it's just me talking to myself for most of the day in the office. So that was the thing about entrepreneurship. I think that it's almost like I reflected back on that, because when you're in it, you're just
surviving,
doing what you can to survive.
Mm.
And I think also too, you have success. We had early success in regards to Fitness Revolution and being a part of a coaching group. I was quickly put into one of their top tier mastermind groups because we generated revenue faster than the vast majority of their licensees did. And I had bigger problems to solve. And so I needed to be around people who were solving bigger problems, which was great because I was always in rooms that, again, felt like, okay, these people are ahead of me. I can sit here and chase them in some capacity. But then you also start to realize quickly that you don't have enough resources, i.e. money, to really hire all these different roles. And so how do I manage my time in my week to make sure that enough time is being dedicated to marketing and enough time is being dedicated to sales? Oh, and by the way, sales is arbitrary because it's kind of like whenever somebody can come in to get an eval done, I got to be available for it. And coaching sessions and managing coaches and leading them so that they can be leaders. Yeah. So you have to go, where's my time? Mm-hmm. And how do I put myself into different boxes and take one hat off, put another hat on, take one hat off, put another hat on. And so that was the biggest thing I think with entrepreneurship, again, that I look at now, because now I wear way less hats. And therefore, I'm able to do those jobs much, much better. But also, you build a lot of resilience where I feel like I can take on more than most people can because I have the experience of being able to do it. Now, there's a difference in who I was at 27. Again, dog, apartment. No kids. I mean, I was dating my now wife, Emily, and maybe we were engaged early on. But that, I think about like the Gold's route of coaching in the morning from 6 to 10, go home, take my dog to the park, write some programs, eat some lunch, come back, coach from 4 to 8, go home, take him out for a walk, eat some dinner, maybe watch some TV and go to bed, and just rinse and repeat Monday through Friday. That doesn't fly anymore, or any version of that where I was wearing different hats as a business owner. And not only that, I have twin 9-year-old daughters that I only have in the house. And someone said this to me, and it makes complete sense. But you think, oh, I only have that until they're 18. You only have it until they're 16. Once they're 16 and they have their own car and their ability to leave the house on their own, they're probably going to.
And it goes so fast.
And I can't let that time just slip by. I want to be there to take them to the bus. If they want to give me a hug and a kiss before they get on the bus, I am there for it, right? We were in Chicago for a brief bit for spring break a couple weeks back. And I made the joke. I'm like, I spent more time in a makeup store than I ever want to in my life. And Emily said to me at one point, she's like, this is probably your nightmare. And I'm like, I'm a girl dad. I'm here for it. Mm-hmm. It's whatever, but you only have so much of that time. And that was always my ambition too with my business, was I wanted to have it be something where I had people able to do the things that we did, our service, which, is personal training essentially, so that I had a way for my business to keep functioning while I coach my daughters in softball. Now I take them to their BJJ that they do most of the time. I'm able to, again, get them on the bus in the morning when When I can, I'm there to get them off the bus. And that's the kind of stuff that the relationship pieces you can't get back with kids, that I realize like I have to be able to find a way to be present for this and build a business that can support that.
That's really important, because I know for me, running the business was, it definitely impacted the time I had with my kids. I never missed a soccer practice. I was everywhere I could be, but then again, I wasn't always present because I was always thinking of, all the things. So it's really important in any stage of your professional life to make sure that you're prioritizing your family, for sure.
Yeah.
So now that you've made some changes at the gym where you have more time, you talked a little bit on your first podcast episode about this, about how things shifted. You want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. So October 2024. And so now we're talking about, I guess 12 years. I think back on it. So 12 years after we opened, June of 2012, I made the last hire that we needed to make to remove myself entirely from our coaching sessions on the floor. Meaning, I still sub, I still can help out. But one thing that I always felt bad about was when I traveled for my mastermind meetings, for speaking engagements, for whatever the thing was that I was traveling for, I had to get coverage for my sessions from my coaches. And in some ways, like as the business owner, I felt bad about that they had to cover my stuff, versus now, okay, all the things I needed to do at one point are covered. We have people who are able to be better coaches, and to your point, more present than me. They don't have 5 things rolling around their mind of things they're not getting done right now because they're coaching a session. They're just coaching the session because that's what they do. And so it was freeing to experience that.
But
and I'm going, I just gave up the thing that I theoretically know how to do the best, that I've been the best at my whole life, that I've identified as, my whole professional career. Almost everybody that I know knows me as a personal trainer, as a trainer, or some version of that word. Versus I'm much more of a entrepreneur or a business owner now, and looking at my schedule going, what do? I don't need to be up at the same time every morning to get to the 5:30 a.m. session. I don't need to be here until 6:30 at night. How do I balance and manage all this stuff? And call it whatever you want. Identity loss.
Definitely.
Identity loss of something that I was really good at, which is kind of the emphasis of my podcast too. Is it's one thing to lose your identity because you get forced into it, or things change, or maybe you go through divorce, but you're like, okay, well, I wasn't really the greatest husband, and so fine, that kind of stuff happens. But to make the choice to lose an identity of a thing that you were at one point the best at least in the little context of my world, you're like, oh, how do I get to be that good at something else?
And what is that something else?
What is that something else?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not something that I anticipated. I didn't, when I was in the grind, it was like, I never even imagined retiring or not working so much. It was just the long days, the lots of stress, and I just didn't even think about that option. And then when all of a sudden it shifted and you weren't in that space anymore, you lose that identity and you go, now what? You think that'd be like a dream come true, like, oh, I can do whatever I want. But it's really hard. There's a grief that goes along with that process.
Yeah. And I could never sit here and say to you that I'm over it. I'm not. But there are stages to it, right? There are stages to grief. And I can't sit here and tell you what they all are because that's not my specialty. So I'm not going to try to. But the idea that, there's a growth process to it. And no different than how I had to grow and develop my coaching voice and my expertise and getting to where I got to. you can't just skip those steps in figuring out what the next thing is. But one thing I do know about myself that I think has been sort of a breath of fresh air maybe, is that I'm an explorer. So there's play personalities. Dr. Stuart Brown is his name, and he created a book. It's called Play, but essentially talks about how imperative play is for our development, our creativity, everything we do intellectually, and not just as a kid, but literally through adulthood. And he has a simple quiz you can find online anywhere, but like, what's your play personality? One of my big ones is exploration. I like to take different paths on the trails when we're hiking. I like to go off the beaten path. I like to take different ways home to find how can I get home from one place to the other, compared to the last time we did it. And so being able to step away from the coaching where it's like you do the same thing over and over again with the same clients who come in on the same days of the week and all these in the same vibe in this session versus this session. When you're an explorer and you have more of that freedom, you can start to dabble in things and go, well, what do I like? What do I don't like? Do I not like? And I was actually having this conversation right before this, but one of the things that I've become really passionate about in our business is a cash flow model that we use. So we use a cash flow model, and it's like my way of, as a CFO, making sure that we have now allocating funds to different accounts. It's really fun for me to talk about. It's always fun to see your money grow.
True.
And I've taught numerous other entrepreneurs about it, or helped them set it up for their brand new business that they're creating because they didn't have before and they wanted to start things fresh and correct. But I've also had to realize, because I took a hobby in some ways with my training and turned it into a profession, that all my hobbies don't have to be professions.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I don't necessarily want to be somebody who is a cash flow coach or a profit first coach for Mike Markiewicz. Like, that's not something that I necessarily want. I'm so happy to share my knowledge, and it's interesting and I'll get excited about it, but that's not what I want to do. And so as an explorer, having the opportunity to have the time to dabble in things and try them and let them kind of run their course and go, oh, yeah, I like that. That's fun. I'll keep that there, but it's just going to be off to the side. It's not going to do anything for me. But let's explore this, or let's explore that and see where those things take me, and how that maybe is going to help me figure out what direction I'm going in.
What's next?
Yeah.
So now, to running out of time a little bit, now that you've had more time, now you've started your podcast, which we mentioned. So let's talk about the name of that, and then what the athletes that you talk to and the philosophy behind that. Yeah.
So the podcast is called The Human Athlete, and that was a really intentional title. I'm going to be, and I have been, and will continue to be interviewing individuals who are Division I level athletes and above, largely because those individuals identified themselves as athletes, and really everybody else did also. They were Joe the football player or Logan the hockey player for most of their formative years. And then at some point, the only profession that really exists where you can't take it to retirement age, 65 or whatever you want to call retirement age, is sport. You're going to age out at some point, well before your working career is done. And so a lot of those individuals, they go through a similar identity crisis to what I went through, being elite at something. But then also many of them have re-risen and found meaningful excellence or passion and purpose in something beyond sport, or even within sport, but in a different context or method. And interviewing them to have them tell their story of that rise through athletics, that fall, what they went through, and then the reascension is really the purpose of the podcast. But it's also to shed light on it. And I had an interview recently with somebody who many people in the area know collegiately as a football player, played in the NFL, won a Super Bowl. And he and I were talking, and what I was able to gather from Google searching and figuring out like where there have been good interviews with him to just dig into more of what he's interested in. It was hard to find. and he's well removed from playing professional football. And then we talked, and as the interview kept going on, he started talking about his experience as being a big in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and helping individual collegiate athletes now who he sees himself in them and sees the things he thought of himself when he was their age, and wanting to help them understand there's a bigger world out there. Like all of a sudden the energy, the passion came out, and I'm like, this is cool, because nobody would know that about him unless they literally sat down and had a conversation with him, which a lot of people would look at and go, oh my gosh, like celebrity or star athlete, I can't talk to that person. He's unapproachable. We're all just humans.
We really are.
We're all just humans. And so to be able to humanize my guests in that way so that they can tell their story, be vulnerable, and hopefully some really cool things come out of it. I don't know what. And that's what's kind of fun about the whole podcast thing. It's a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing I enjoy. It's not consuming a lot of my time, but I do really enjoy it. And I enjoy the conversations that are being had. And I'm hopeful that we figure out where it's going and how it can just impact a lot of people as time goes on.
I found so much, these repetitive themes throughout the podcast that we've done. And one thing we talk about a lot is how when you change your focus to helping other people, how much that in turn fuels the fire in your soul, gives you purpose, and it makes you excited and changes your life. And oftentimes we talk about it as a second mountain, like your first mountain, as you mentioned, is maybe your sports career or your career in general. And then once you're over it and you've done these things, you can keep pushing, the goalpost further and doing the same thing, but you don't get that same sense of fulfillment. Whereas when you change your focus to doing something to impact other people, that it gives you just a different drive. And how I'm assuming that a lot of the athletes that you talk to, that seems to be the case.
Yeah. And I think that it's where I feel like the impact is actually being had too with them is the fact that I'm approaching them in a way where I'm not asking about their career accolades, or I'm not asking about tell your favorite war story from in the trenches or, in the boat or whatever. Those things are important for the audience contextually to understand, but I explained to them also, I say, part of this is I want you to utilize, what sport brought you and talk about that in the context of how that you recognize those traits that were imperative to your success as an athlete have also transitioned into where you're successful now. Because I want the listeners to gain that understanding of, again, that individual, but also like the skill sets of whatever it is you're doing are just that. It's those intrinsic internal traits, the things that make you who you are, that you always carry with you. And when you can lean into those things, then all of a sudden the jobs you're doing are just an expression of that and learning the specific skills associated with that. But at the end of the day, when you can understand what makes you, or what makes, in these individuals, they figured out what makes them great at something.
Right.
They realize that, okay, it's those things that can make me great at anything. If I just understand those things, apply them and lean into them versus trying to adapt all the time and be different no matter where you are.
And I think, quote unquote, ordinary people can really learn from people who have found success and to really look inward, do the same from what they've done. You don't have to be a D1 athlete to have done amazing things to be able to do the same thing where you sit back and look at what you learned and see how you can apply it going forward. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Cool. We all have greatness, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what do you see for your gym going forward now that you've made a little bit of a transition and you're a little step away and you're spending time with those twin girls? Like what's next?
From the gym perspective, I think for me, it's about supporting my staff. And it's a trickle down effect. My number one job now is to make sure that my staff feels like they're being taken care of. In an industry like ours, which is just full of burnout and attrition and turnover, we have some really long-standing coaches. I mean, my head coach, Max, had been with us for over 11 years now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And a number of other coaches who, I mean, hopeful they're not going anywhere. I mean, when we're trying to make sure that that's the way, and evolving with them as they develop and as they have family, significant others, and wanting to buy houses and have kids and all those things, and trying to find ways to continue to support them, to allow them to grow with us and keep working for us, is my biggest job. And then I think as we're working on that, there's going to be trickle downs to our clients and their experience continuing to improve, and them feeling like they're getting more from us. Because the way I look at it is, if I can support my staff in a way where they're getting all the things that they need, now I can trust that they're going to do the same for our clients that I would if I was in their shoes. Which at the end of the day, in the industry that we are in, if I can get our client experience to match what I would give my clients, if it was just me 100% focused on that, not wearing 5 different hats, then, man, we're doing an awesome job.
Right.
So that's really what it's about.
And that's leadership. That's exactly leadership 101. Just you got to take care of your people. So how cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm really excited that we came in here and talked about this. And I know a lot of people personally who have been a part of your gym for a long time. And that says a lot when you, again, have that retention of your clients that really found a place that they're comfortable and grow and get that strength and that confidence to keep moving forward in their training. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So for our listeners, how can people find out more about you, your podcast, and your gym?
Yeah. From a standpoint of social media, you can find me on Instagram. So Coach J Mark, and that's a long story, but Coach J Mark. My name is Jared, not Mark. On Facebook, just my name, Jared Markiewicz. On LinkedIn, same thing. The gym website is fitmadtown.com. And then I have my performance coaching, my speaking, and the podcast all through what's called fitlegacy.co. But on there, you'll find things about my performance coaching that I do, my speaking, and also links to the podcast, The Human Athlete.
Nice. And how has it been for you doing speaking engagements?
So for me, it's about impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy the stage because it gives me a large platform to educate. And when I get that, it's fun for me. And so where a lot of people are terrified of the stage, or speaking is the number one fear, or public speaking is the number one fear out there, for me, it's like, bring it on. And the bigger the stage, the greater the impact I can have. And that's, for me, I think part of the reason why the podcast is so intriguing also, is just another opportunity to be in front of a microphone, to be in front of a camera, to speak, to impact. Yeah.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will put those links in the show notes as well, so that our listeners can find you and follow your podcast. And for all of you podcast listeners, make sure you hit that follow button and that download button to get those things going. So I'm going to finish the podcast here by asking you the question that I ask all my guests. So if you, Jared, today could have a conversation with you of the past, and you can pick which Jared you're talking to, maybe the one, who is stopped drinking soda. I don't know. But a younger version of you, what advice would you give yourself?
Dang it. This is one that hits, because I was just talking about this like an hour ago. Allow yourself to feel deeply. I have come to some significant realizations about myself in the last year and a half. And one of those is I'm a lot more sensitive than my exterior can give off. And it wasn't that it was not permissible to do so from anybody that was in my life. It was just one of those things that's just the Midwest way, kind of, not being able to feel or to be sensitive. So feel deeply. Yeah.
So now you, Jared, can sit down with your future self. You can pick how old he is, maybe you have grandkids someday from those beautiful twins. You're sitting down, ask your future self a question, and what do you think he would say back to you?
The same question?
Which question would it be?
Ooh. So I know what the question would be. It's, have you had the impact you desired you would have?
And what is he going to say?
The answer would be not entirely.
Not entirely. Because why?
Because there's always more.
Mm.
There's always more to give, to find opportunities to impact in different ways.
So I'm going to expand on that. So what advice do you think your future self would give you based on that?
Keep learning and keep connecting.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks, Erica. Great to have you.
Awesome.